Hi everybody, and welcome to Filled My Head, the channel where we bring you the United States and the world in lists of 10. Today, we are looking at unintentional deaths in the United States. Put another way, these are deaths by accident, and they are serious business. In 2019, the last year data is available in WISQARS, linked in the notes where you can get an explanation. Accidental deaths were the third leading cause of death in the United States, with just over 173,000 lives lost. These deaths are categorized in a number of ways, and it was tempting to try and look at some of the minutiae, but ultimately we are sticking with broad categories that are clearly identifiable. There are unspecified and other classifiable categories that account for a lot of deaths, but these don't put a clear definition on what actually happened, so we excluded them. It's a judgment call as well as an encouragement for everyone to dig deeper into what interests you. It is worth noting that accidental deaths are a leading cause of death in young children, so hopefully being aware of some of these makes you think twice and act in ways that can prevent them. In every case, children or not, these are largely preventable deaths. Before we get going, as always, when discussing fatality data, please keep in mind that there are real lives lost behind this data. People are grieving that are left behind. Pedestrian accidents. I have to admit that this one came as a surprise. 916 people lost their lives in the course of simply walking around. Head out for a stroll, walk to lunch from the office, and poof, you don't complete the round trip. Like all of the items on the list, when this happens, the people left behind are in shock. There's no warning here. Horrible, unexpected, shocking death. You can say that 916 people are not many in a country with a population of over 300 million, and you would be right, but that misses the point. Like your parents should have taught you when you were young, look both ways before crossing the street, and be alert. Transport-related deaths amounted to the loss of 1,195 lives in 2019. This category is actually split into transport-related land and transport-related other. We're talking about other here, so think boats, planes, and other transport devices. This is one of the few categories you have very little control over, other than to make sure if you are on a public transport device that it's owned by a reputable entity that is fully accountable for its safety. Like pedestrians, it is a relatively small number of deaths, but it is equally as shocking. Hopefully, when we hear about these accidents in the media, we take a moment to think about the people who are left behind as well as the lives lost. The number 8 category is an odd one called natural and environmental causes. This includes everything from weather-related items such as excess heat and cold and hurricanes to animal bites. In 2019, this broad category accounted for 2,072 unintentional deaths in the United States. I live in hurricane country as well as a massive flood zone, and here is some good advice. If authorities tell you to evacuate, do so. Don't stay in your house if you know it's at risk, because when the proverbial mess hits the fan, you will be focused on saving yourself, not your stuff. Just go somewhere else until it's all over. The damage will be there when it is all over, regardless of where you are. The difference is that if you aren't with your stuff, then at least the damage won't include you. Burned by flame. There's a separate category for hot objects burning people to death, but the numbers for burned by flame are the ones that are considerable. 2,642 people met their demise this way, and it is an absolutely horrible way to go. My father-in-law was badly burned years ago. He required skin grafts, he dealt with being isolated in a clean room, and of course he was living in sheer agony that even the strongest painkillers could barely touch. And this is what awaits people who survive burns by flame, even if only for a short period of time. I would personally wish this on no other human being. Flesh is not flame retardant. If it's hot, please be careful with it. No joke. Number 6 is non-drug poisoning. This category includes some pretty nasty ways to go and is also nearly completely preventable. Alcohol, household cleaners, pesticides, paints, solvents, and gases such as carbon monoxide make up the killers on this list. If you want to avoid you or a family member becoming one of the 3,581 deaths related to these causes, then take some super simple steps to prevent it from happening. Carbon monoxide detectors are inexpensive and very effective. My family has been the victim of carbon monoxide poisoning before, and nobody is kidding when they say it is odorless. You just feel a headache, tell yourself you're getting a bad stomach bug, and then you lay down and you never wake up. Alcohol is a biggie here as well. There's no good reason to drink alcohol as it provides zero benefits while creating a number of long-term health issues. If you feel for some reason that you must consume alcohol, keep it to 2 drinks or less for men and 1 drink for women. But 0 alcohol is best. As for chemicals, if you have young children who might get into them, make sure they are properly secured. Place them in a high cabinet, in a locked shed, or in a place where the entry has a child-proof latch. Don't leave any of this to chance. Good news here, this is a much smaller category than it was when I was a kid. People are getting smarter, and safety options are getting more plentiful. The number 5 item on this list is drowning. We make our guesses about data points before we start work on data retrieval and analysis for these episodes, and I was eerily close on this one, guessing it would finish around number 5 and account for around 3,500 deaths. Well, the number is 3,660, and here it sits right at number 5. This is another one that the numbers can be reduced with a little forethought and some safety measures put in place. If you add a pool to your house and young children who are not strong swimmers are going to be around, gate off the pool. If you have kids in the pool, watch it like a hawk. Don't text with friends, don't talk on the phone, don't play a game on your tablet. Keep an eye out. As with all unintentional causes of death, there are things here that affect others that are beyond any of our control. You can't prevent an adult who swims alone in their own pool from doing so. Ice breaks when you walk on it, and lots of people do that. Ocean currents and tidal forces are strong, and swimming too far out and running out of steam, it happens. Remember that lifeguards are great at public pools, and you should be taking lifeguard duty seriously at your own home pool. That's a step in the right direction. Suffocation. Number 4 is an interesting one, and that I suspect it used to be a lot bigger than the 7,076 deaths it caused in 2019. Suffocation includes not only things like choking or food, which is a serious issue, folks. Learn the Heimlich. I've had to use it a few times in my life. Very useful skill. But this category also includes positional asphyxia, and that includes sudden infant death syndrome. SIDS has been greatly reduced as a death factor, and that's huge since we are talking about the youngest babies dying. SIDS used to account for 130 deaths per 100,000 live births in 1990. Today, that number is around 33 per 100,000. That's a massive and very welcome decrease. Babies go on their back or side when they sleep. Never put them on their stomach. If you say, they roll onto their stomach when I put them on their back, then they're capable of moving themselves around and you don't have to stress about this one anymore. Until then, put them on their back. Motor vehicle traffic accidents. This is where we take a big turn. Suffocation accounted for just over 7,000 deaths at number 4 on this list, whereas traffic accidents involving motor vehicles comes in at number 3 with 37,595 unintentional deaths. That's an enormous leap, and this gain is something that can be reduced greatly. Don't drink and drive is great advice. Beyond no drinking and driving, there are other simple things you can do. Leave early so you don't have to rush to get places on time. If you can't manage that, then just be late and unreliable rather than putting yourself and others at risk. Don't drive when you're fatigued or sleepy. Don't drive after you've done any drugs. Follow the speed limit. In Texas, where I live, the speed limits have been altered long ago to be super reasonable for the conditions and locations where I drive. If your state has stupid speed limits, start harping on your public officials. Whatever you do, get there in one piece and help others do the same. I expected this to be somewhere around number 3 on this list. I even guessed it would be a good-sized number, but I was absolutely shocked to see it place ahead of motor vehicle traffic accidents. 39,443 people lost their lives falling in 2019, and that's a really big number. I have a disability, and I fall somewhat regularly, and it really hurts most of the time. But I have thus far lived, obviously. Seeing this number is a bit alarming. I think about elderly people who don't have someone nearby or don't have their phone on them when they fall. I have more than a little experience with this with my in-laws, and it was ultimately the cause of death with my father-in-law. If you have an aging parent or neighbor, make sure they're equipped with a device that allows them to get help if they fall. A phone isn't useful if it isn't on you, so look at wearables. There are other causes for falling than simply from age or disability, obviously. Wet floors, uneven ground, unprotected ledges, steep roof inclines. Just be careful, folks. Lots of lives to be spared here. Lots. Obviously, the numbers get bigger as we get closer to number 1. At least they tend to grow in the same direction. Honestly, sometimes the number 1 and number 2 items in a dataset are so close as to be interchangeable depending on the quality of the data. But sadly, that is not the case here. The number 1 cause of accidental deaths in the United States exceeds the number 2 cause by more than 22,000 deaths. That's an increase of more than 50%, and it's alarming as these are once again largely preventable deaths. The worst thing about number 1 is that it will take culture change to really make a dent, and that isn't the easiest thing to accomplish anymore. The number 1 cause of unintentional death in the United States is drug poisoning. This was number 1 on my personal guest list, and it came as no surprise at all. This category includes deaths from the unintentional misuse of both legal and illegal drugs, and from unintended reactions to their proper use. When taken correctly and under the care of a physician, drugs are a beneficial medical miracle in many ways. The ability we have to control pain, cure infection and disease, and manage maladies is unprecedented in human history. But legal drugs carry risks, particularly when misused. And illegal drugs are a death waiting to happen. 62,172 Americans lost their lives in 2019 due to poisoning by drugs. This is a number that really doesn't need to be anywhere near this big. If you know someone with a drug problem, help them get help. Most important of all, don't allow yourself or the ones you love to become a statistic. There's a 100% effective way to prevent dying from illegal drugs, and that's to not start using them to begin with. Duh, right? Yet, somehow, this escapes a great many people. Our mission at Filled My Head is to help people understand the world better by making data simpler to comprehend. Thanks for showing up today and bringing your curiosity. No data sources are perfect, but all data sources used that we can link are linked in the notes below, so go explore. We're working on launching FilledMyHead.com in 2022. Check back with us to see when we announce the launch. Leave a comment or suggestion for more episodes, say hi, like and subscribe, and don't forget to click the bell icon so you know when more content is posted. There's a lot more to come, so check back regularly. Thanks!